someone who wants to take a, wants to be a jazz player as such, a beginner sort of, like, let's take a song for instance?
There's of course the basics of learning the instrument, right? Because the more that you know about the instrument, the more of those barriers that you break, the more open you can be when you express yourself. But the big thing is a lot of people, regardless of if it's jazz or other styles of music, often when my students come in, not talking about you, are you back? Are you? But often when my students come in, a lot of them are not listening to too much of anything. When I ask, are you listening to anything? Nope. And this is one of those things that it's like a language. So if you never hearing someone speak it, then all you have is the grammatical tools to do it, but you're just basically trying to make up something without ever having a reference to anything at all, right? So one of the big things is that students should do a lot of listening. Now, some people advocate a lot of transcribing, listening, figuring out things by ear. Some people write it out, some don't. I think most of us have done that at some point, and I do it from time to time as well. But by really training the ears, by playing with other people and listening, especially listening to the music, will help with that. Like I said, otherwise one of the jokes that people say is, like with jazz, they're just making it up. They're just making it up all the time. Play some wrong notes, there's jazz. But the thing is, it's really patterns and things that we've practiced a lot and things that we hear. So it's a mixture of things coming out while we're listening to each other and trying to have a conversation, right? That's what the bigger picture is. We're having a musical conversation here, as opposed to other styles of music like a rock style of music where, people go in and play their parts. I'm sure, some people like to improvise their solos, but they go in, this is what we do, same thing every night, go out and do it. But for us, there's ups and downs, or, for us, each of us know individually about this. Like, after we play a gig, we might think, oh man, I really wasn't listening very much to the guy, and there's some cool stuff happening, and I didn't interact, I didn't really have a conversation back with the person. That's the bigger picture, what we try to do.
Thanks.
So what is Jazz 101? What makes jazz jazz? I'll ask that question. A lot of people, I'm sure, know. I don't.
I think the big thing is the improvisational part of it.
Okay.
I'll let these guys speak to it. That, to me, there's lots of things that I could say, and lots of things that we all could say about it. And what defines jazz is different, because that's one of those blanket terms that some people don't like to use because it pigeonholes. Some people, when they hear jazz, they think Kenny G.
Right.
Some of you guys might like Kenny G, that's fine. And he makes his living, he does his thing. Other people say Miles Davis is a jazz guy. Some people, say jazz and they're like, oh, Steely Dan, which Steely Dan has some jazz elements to it, right? But to me, the big thing is, the improvisational aspect of it. What do you guys think?
Some people think that jazz is dead.
That too. Yeah, that too.
I think I can agree with the improvisational part of it. It's a very personal thing. It's a lifelong journey. And I might be on my deathbed and not really know what jazz is to me. Some people are sure of it. Other people dispute different things. I don't know. It's a very personal thing. It's a language. It's a conversation. And I don't really know what jazz is. I have a degree in it, but I don't really know what jazz is.
Now, how much of that improvisation is actually choreographed in a way? You guys seem to be going out, but then again, you seem to be in harmony as well.
It's listening. It's a lot of listening and reacting and making choices along the way of how I can complement what the other guys are doing and hopefully not get in the way of what they're doing.
So would it be safe to say no to recitals are the same
That's right.
Exactly.
for you guys?
You may hear the
Oh,
same.
not at all.
You may hear the same melodies, but everything from the beginning and the end melody, everything in between will never be the same way twice.
It's going to depend on the musicians as well, and it will depend on the experience that we have. I mean, we've all played together before. Some of us have played together more than some of the others, but you start to get an idea of, just like when you talk to somebody, you have an idea of what their personality is after being around them for a while, and you recognize their voice. Those things carry over. So we recognize things from each other when we hear. We're like, oh, okay. You get those things. But we're always improving too, or at least striving to improve. So there's new things we might throw out, and we're trying to interact with that. But lots of things can affect it. Different people, how we feel that night, the venue itself, how the sound is coming out, whether or not it's the room has a pretty good sound, acoustic-wise or not. At least that really affects me. I get really uptight about that stuff, but I'm sensitive to that. All that stuff goes into it. But yeah, if you listen back to us, today we play it, tomorrow we play it, you'll hear some similarities, but it won't be exact.
So I have a question. So when you're booking your gigs or you're setting up where you're going to play that next weekend or something like that, and they say, so you're a jazz band, but somehow you have to say, yeah, but not a Kenny G jazz band. How does that conversation go? Or how do you articulate, we're not Kenny G.
Which style of jazz?
Yeah, what style of jazz?
The thing is, I always send audio or video of what's going on, but really, this is generalizing this. You could be someone, and they may disagree with me on this, but you could be someone that kind of sounds like you're playing jazz, and they'll let you come in. It depends on what they're looking for. If you're going to a place like, let's say, the Greenwich, or when the Blue Wisp was open, they prefer not someone to come in and they're like fake, like they really can't hang, they really can't do it. But if you're background music, if you're playing at a nice restaurant or something like that, as long as you sound something like that, they're really not paying. They're not coming over there. That's not that's not jazz. So I try to just let them hear it, not describe it, but let them hear a sound.
Yeah.
And usually when I'm throwing things out, I tell them where I've played at, and let them be the judge from there.
Yeah.
But they, some places are a little bit more. I've tried to book a couple other venues before where they're a little bit more uptight, and they look for what they call commercial jazz, which means like Sinatra, Dean Martin, like that's kind of what our American songbook type stuff, which we did not play here at all tonight. And some guys, if they're really stuck up about it, about the jazz thing, what I done tonight, like my tunes, some of them were not considered jazz, and that's fine. I mean, not all jazz sounds the same. It's not Frank Sinatra. It's not Kenny G. But that's fine. I do what I do, but I let them basically judge by their ears.
I wanted to get back to you about the conversation. They were both talking about the same thing, and the older I get, because I'm older than all of them, the more it's important to me. Not the material is good, playing decent material is great, but for me anymore, you can play with lots of people over the years, and I have, and for this particular thing, jazz, if you have 4 people on stage who are jazz players, and maybe really great ones, because there's lots of great ones in town, but I've seen horrible sounding gigs with some of the best players in town all together on the stage because there's no chemistry.
Right.
They don't really know each other personally, and so when you get in, I've been playing with Bob and Sean for a long time, and I would be willing to bet that if they were to go and listen, I could put on a recording of me playing with anyone, and they would know it's me. Because there's certain things that that have just become part of my vernacular that always come out in my improvising. And they've heard it so many times. Not only is that part of my musical personality, but that's part of the conversation. They hear me say the same thing I've said a few times, and they know where I'm going to go. And so as a soloist, I do some section things, but as a soloist, what these guys do behind me is everything. What I'm doing is just my thing, but they actually control what I do. Does that make any sense? So even though I have a whole lot of things to say, they may redirect me through energy, through loudness, talking back and forth to me. I may play something, they may play something back to me that's just like that. That's part of what makes this music the way it is. And you cannot, you do as best you can to put people together that know each other on multiple levels, not just musical levels, but multiple levels. And I have turned down gigs because of that. Like, I don't really know that person that much. That's not going to be fun for me, So, and that I think that comes across. My wife always says, you guys play with lots of energy. And my wife was a musician, but she has not been for a while. But people who know nothing about music understand stage energy, the band kind of being into it. And so you can't really, it's hard to do that without people that you're playing with that know you're playing that can support you while you're doing that. Because otherwise, it makes for a long gig and you're trying to create a bunch of energy that no one on the stand is giving you back.